Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Huzur
Jamaat
says that a few days back, a Buzurg, a very saint person and a scholar, Usman Cheeni Saheb, has passed away. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajeoune. Allah the Almighty, Allah Almighty brought him from a far-off area under special decree of Allah Almighty. He took him there and he went to Pakistan and he was enabled to accept Ahmadiyyat. How Allah Almighty was treating him throughout and enabling him to accept Ahmadiyyat and to get the religious knowledge, and Allah Almighty guided him all the through. He has written his own memoirs in which he has thrown light amply on these happenings. I can't go into that detail here in khutbah. What he told to various people, and then the people who have mentioned some comments about him and they have written to me. Those things, they are also very much detailed. And again, to go into detail or to mention all of that is not possible. Very inspiring incidents are there. His life history and his contributions for the Jamaat. There is so much material is available that, in my opinion, a book can be written, and Khudamul Ahmadiyya Pakistan can do this job very well. Anyway, this dervish type, very saintly person of the community, who was a missionary of the community, a scholar, and he was not only a scholar but practicing scholar, and he was a friend of Allah, and I am going to mention some of those things, which is for the missionaries and the murabbiyan. This is an example worth following, and for all the people, for every Ahmadi, as a matter of fact, various people who have written about his sirat and character. As I said, I will be mentioning later on Usman Cheeni Saheb. He was known by this name. His full name was Muhammad Usman Cheeni Saheb. She was the name. 13th of April 2018 he passed away. In 13th of December in 1925 he was born in a Ahmadi family, a Muslim family, and in one province of China. After the high school studies in 1946 in a university, he did advanced course in a university and Nanjing University, and then in a political department he started getting the education because he was not interested in politics. So he thought that I should study law and the philosophy and religion. There was planning to go to Turkey, but in 1949 he came to Pakistan and he investigated himself and did the Baitul and started his study in Jamia Ahmadiyya. In 57 he got the degree of Shahadatul Ajanib. That was a short course for the missionaries. And on 16th of August in 1959 he dedicated his life, and he was appointed in January 1960. He was appointed. And in order to finish the missionaries course, he was admitted again into Jamia Ahmadiyya to complete a certain course. And in 1964 he got the degree of Shahid from Jamia. He was in Wakalat-e-Tasnif in Rabwa and then Karachi and Rabwa. He, as a devotee of life and missionary, he had the honor of serving. In 1966, he went to Malaysia and Singapore, and he served the community over there. He went there for 3.5 years. He was there, and a few months in Malaysia. In 1970, he came back to Pakistan, and in various places he served as the missionary. He had the honor of performing Umrah and pilgrimage to Mecca. And after the migration of Hadhrat Khalifatul Masih, when in London the various offices were established here, and the expansion of work was there, and the Jamaat literature, the translation of that, more and more requirements were there, and expansion was there. So then Chinese desk was established. He was called to come over here, and he had the honor of translating various books. First of all, the translation of the Holy Quran in Chinese is worth mentioning, and then the books based on Jamaat beliefs and detailed history. He wrote such books. He has left behind wife, one son and 2 daughters. So far as the translation of the Holy Quran in Chinese is concerned, in 1986, he started this job under the instruction of Hadhrat Khalifatul Masih, and the same year in June, he was called to come to UK from Pakistan, and after 4 years efforts, the work, he completed the translation. Cheeni Saheb himself writes that the job of translation in Chinese, it required long time. Hadhrat Khalifatul Masih had instructed that by the time of the Ahmadiyya centenary should be published. I was greatly worried because so that the job could be complete, and I was in search of appropriate people who could help us in improving the standard of translation. And this was very difficult to do the job living in England and Pakistan. So if somebody was fully well versed in Chinese, then he was not, religious knowledge was not there, and it was quite difficult task which he was asked to complete. He says that anyway, when the translation was complete, then at the instruction of Hadhrat Khalifatul Masih, he went to China and Singapore, and he consulted those people and improved on that, and by the grace of Allah, a very translation of a high good standard was prepared in this way. And he writes very humbly that it was not possible for me to do. It is just by the grace of Allah that I have been able to complete it. He says that in Chinese, there were several other translations before that, and after that as well, separate other. Their number is great, but the translation done by the Ahmadiyya Jamaat, it has got a distinctive qualities which are not to be found in other translations. And it is done according to Islamic, according to Ahmadiyya ilm kalam, the knowledge of argumentation. And the Chinese scholars, they have sent so many comments on that, who declared that this translation is wonderful, and they complimented the excellence of this translation. The translation by the Jamaat is very popular, and there is a great demand of that. And generally speaking, some people, they do criticize that some Jamaat doctrines have been added and the translation has been done according to that. But the standard of the translation is very high. A professor in China, Ling Song, he has written a book that Chinese translation of the Holy Quran in this century, and he has mentioned our translation as well. And he has spent 15 pages of the book. He has made a comment in detail on 15 pages of his book. And Professor Sahib, in great detail, he mentions the outstanding qualities of this translation. For example, he says that generally the scholars, when they do the translation, so they do not translate each and every word. And instead of translating, they just write the Arabic word, or they explain in the margin, footnote. But it appears that as if that part is vague for them. But the quality of the tarjuma and the translation done by Usman Sahib is that when he translates those passages, so then he translates and the supporting evidence and references are put in the margin. And he says that, and he said that I have written the comment and I have met Usman Cheeni Sahib many times. And this is comment of a great scholar of Chinese who describes him as an authority on Islam in Chinese. And he says this is a very simple, straightforward, upright and a dedicated person is there. That is Usman Cheeni Sahib, who has done the translation. And he said that I called him to come for iftar in Ramzan. He considered the Holy Quran as the book of God, and there are the Chinese and the translation and the commentary. They are not in accordance with the Sunni translation, Sunni people. But is it possible to criticize that, because he is firmly believing in the unity of Allah and loves the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and also he follows the commandments of Allah the Almighty. Cheeni Sahib, the literature which he produced under his supervision, in that the English title is there, My Life and Introduction to Morality, and 7 books are his, and nearly 35 books have been translated under his supervision. And the outline of Ahmadiyya Jamaat, this introduction, outline of Islam, its introduction of Islam, fundamental questions about Islam answered. And these are the basic questions about Islam, Islamic concept of jihad, and Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat. This is a book written in Chinese. Then Ahmadiyya Muslims' contribution to he wrote this book, and what is the need of that in Islamic life, what is the need of religion. These are the scholarly contributions of this, which I have mentioned very briefly. The family life, the wife writes that when this proposal from Usman, regarding Usman Sahib was there, so because of the difference of age, my parents did not agree this. His wife is from China, and she says my age was only 20, and Usman Sahib was nearly 50 years old at that time. And my father did not tell me after several weeks, but when he told me, then he put the letter in front of me that I should decide myself. She says that I saw in a dream that I am standing empty-handed in an open field in a foreign country, but I was thinking, what will happen to me? Then I saw a person clad in white, and I heard a voice that all your requirements will be fulfilled through this man. So after looking at this in the letter, when I saw Usman Sahib was standing in white clothes and I was lying down, and when I was shown the picture of Usman Sahib, then I came to know that this is the person whom I saw in my dream. And in this way I accepted the proposal of marriage. 4 years the engagement was there, and because of very bad situation of the political situation, and because of revolution, it was difficult to come. And Usman Sahib, she says that Usman Sahib had seen in the dream that when Mao Zedong is going to die, then he will going to get one. and the chairman of China, Mao Zedong, he was not feeling well. He was not sick. He was quite all right and running the affairs of the government. But he thought that I don't know how long it's going to take. Cheeni Saheb decided that he should write a letter to Mao Zedong. And when I was going to post the letter and got the news that Mao Zedong has passed away. And after that, his wife writes that after a few days, and I got my passport, and then she said that I came to my parents' house and with the passport, and when I came there, and there was heavy rain on that night, and there was a complete drought before that, and so much rain was there that in the earth there were some erosion took place. And somebody said that if the rain had come earlier on, then this period of drought would have finished. So he came. I did not have much luggage, only 2 pair of clothes, and some bottles of soya sauce. Anyway, I reached 72 in Pakistan, Karachi. Chaudhry Ahmad Mukhtar Sahib led the khutbah nikah, and third day, and we got married, and third day we have to go to Chinese embassy. And when we went there in train, in which the separate arrangement for men and women was there, and the decision was that we will meet at the station when all the people will come down from the train. And in that room compartment where I was sitting, and all the passengers, they got off, and I said, this is the final thing. And when the train started, then it was very difficult to get on that train because she alighted from the train, but I was very much worried. And anyway, one police officer, when he saw me wandering, so the railway police, they were called in and they sent me to the Chinese embassy. I was wearing niqab, and these people were doubtful whether I am a Chinese and I am covering myself properly. So anyway, they brought a Chinese magazine and said, read it and read it to us. And then the taxi was arranged. It's a long story. And finally, somehow or the other, with great difficulty, the taxi was asking, and they saw one Ahmadi on the way, and finally he brought him to, and the taxi driver was saying that I haven't seen any Muslim lady observing the parda like that. Anyway, she says that this was the beginning of our life. Regarding Usman Sahib, he says he was very good husband. Rather, he was my spiritual teacher. When I came to Pakistan, first of all, he taught me how to offer the prayer. And after leading the prayer in the mosque, he used to teach me the Arabic, and for several hours he would teach me the wording of the Salat, word for word, and he advised me that you go on practicing it. And if you forget, then keep the book of prayers. And in 6 months, he taught me the Qaida, Yasr al-Quran, and then taught me the reading of the Quran, and also gave me the translation. He was very patient, and he would explain to me all the things with various examples. He was very kind, and he invited his mother from China and looked after him for a long period. And there was some days when there was only one bottle of milk for the whole day, and that he would give to his mother. And he would always take the mother, and he served his mother very well. Cheeni Sahib served his mother very well. And she says that he was completely dedicated. He was completely dedicated to the task entrusted to him when he was good. So he would work very late at night, and sometime it was morning until when he was continuing work. his job at home was to look after the children, and he was not very much interested in worldly things. He was not very mindful, very simple about his food and clothes. Then his daughter writes that some qualities of my father, Dr. Khurratulain is the eldest daughter, and it's difficult to explain all that. He was very kind, hard-working, tireless person, and having good hope, and a very modest person. In everything, he would, his sons and children and the sons-in-law, he would always invite them to talk and to take part in discussion, and he would ask about the studies, and he was saying that the purpose of your life is to do the tabligh and preaching, particularly the Chinese people, and would advise all of us regularly that spirituality and morals always keep making progress in that. And his personality and your personality should be such that the existence of God, it should become a proof of the existence of God when the children are believing. So then those children are much better than those who do not believe in God. And always he would advise that whenever you start the work, then you do it regularly. And he never scolded or was harsh to the children. Always he would advise them very mildly and love. And the only thing particular he was regarding the prayer, that why you did not offer the prayer. And in order to make us habitual and regular in it, and he used to go to the mosque 5 times a day, and always he would find a book to give a dars in the family. And then she says that the Kashtiyanu, a very old copy he gave to us that you read. Its Urdu is not very difficult, he said, just like the Urdu in other books is very difficult. And then he said that this is the very first book which he himself read in Jamia Ahmadiyya first of all. Then regarding parda and veil, he was worried that when you go to the university you observe that, and if it's impossible, then in that case don't wear any makeup. And this he asked from the Khalifatul Massih Rabbi, and then gave the permission that you go to university with the condition that you observe the parda, and if you have to take it off out of compulsion, then there should be no makeup at all. And after that immediately you come back. And the younger daughter Munazza says, she says, he used to say that you should try to get the moon. If you don't get a moon, then at least you will get some stars. And he was also encouraging us to wake up for tahajjud prayer, and he used to sprinkle water in our faces to wake us up. He reminded us of studying the books of the promised Messiah, and many hours very patiently he used to answer our questions. Not that he would get fed up and annoyed. He always used to say that whatever abilities Allah has given to you, utilize them. Don't let it go waste. And whatever action you do, that should be done for the sake of worship of Allah. And giving the example of spiritual advancement, they are like a staircase. There are some gaps there, but the person goes on in increasing. She says that she taught us modesty and to take care of other people more than ourselves. when he was in Islamabad, then in all houses the central heating was installed. So then he made sure that it should be installed in our house at the end of all, after others. Daud Sahib, Dr. Daud, he says that he told me that during the study of Jamia, so when the telegram arrived regarding the death of his elder brother and father, he was busy in study. So this is, he said, this is like a trial for me, just like the trial of the study. So he paid attention to the study and did not waste the time. His son says that he was very fond of preaching to the Chinese people, whichever function he used to go and used to introduce community and distribute the literature. And when he used to come on wheelchair, when he was very sick and couldn't walk, and he had to use the wheelchair, so he used to insist to put heavy books in the pockets of the wheelchair so that he can convey the message to those people. Then he says, when I was quite young, when I used to go to his office and try to take a pen or pencil, so he wouldn't allow me to use those pens in my office. And he used to say to my mother that if he needs a pen, then buy him a pen. And if he has to get a photocopy, then we say, then you bring the paper from the home and then you can get a photocopy on this machine. In short, his son writes that, and he used to encourage us to memorize the attributive names of Allah Almighty. He wrote a poem in Chinese, and he used to recite every day in that the attributes of Allah Almighty as mentioned. At night time he used to recite, and during the and he used to make a competition between our siblings who knows the attributive names more than others. Few months back, 2-3 months, when he came to see me, and with his son-in-law in the family, his son-in-law says that he wrote 3 points for me that I won't be able to speak. So what he wanted to ask me, one of those, that I am very weak and I cannot stand. I cannot stand, so I am sitting in a wheelchair. I want to apologize for that. He had a great respect for Khilafat. And then please pray that I may continue preaching till the last breath. And I cannot go to the office and allow me to do the job at home. He was committed to task, and not that I should simply sit at home. When he went for Hajj, his son-in-law was also with him. He says that Usman Sahib, he used to translate his comments in Chinese, his feelings in Chinese, and he said that I am composing these sentiments so that I can get benefit from that later on. And some people asked Cheeni Sahib that what are you writing? He said that I am praying for my Chinese people, that Allah Almighty guide them to the true Islam. And those people, they were very much surprised and expressed. And he said that a person who is very weak, who cannot walk without the support. So, but he is concerned about the welfare of his people and guidance. Cheeni Sahib, in his account, he says that in China, Buddhism and Confucianism and Taoism, there are teachings of those religions, and they are all jumbled up, mixed up. And many Chinese, they act upon the three religions at the same time, and they have put them together and created a new religion. And in that religion, and particularly the moral condition of human being is highlighted. And he says that when my interviews were published in 3 Chinese newspaper, then in Malaysia there was the people of the new religion, and that society requested from me that on the moral teaching of Islam they should write a article, so that the moral teachings of Islam, they would like to publish it in a magazine. And then I wrote one article on that. They wrote and they replied to Cheeni Saheb that you have sent a wonderful article about Islam. We are extremely grateful to you. You have independently, you have mentioned the realities about the teachings, and your discussion was very minute and probing, and that shows that you have learnt a lot of knowledge. The Chinese people do not know about Islam. The reason is that the preaching has not been done in Chinese. So now you have come to Singapore, and because he was a missionary at that time, so naturally in Islamic countries, this message should reach to the Chinese people, and they can also get blessings from that. Saifullah Sahib, he was class fellow, or he was studying in Jamia at the same time, he says. Yes, he was class fellow. He said that Usman Cheeni Saheb was my class fellow in prime youth. He was very pious and very good morals and very good etiquettes, and he used to offer the prayer with great devotion and pray very dedicatedly, and optional fasting he used to observe, and also the remembrance of Allah Almighty. He was completely dedicated to that, and after getting the blessing of Ahmadiyyat, he used to express thanks, and always he used to show dedication and good morals. He says that this is the true witness that at the age of, during the time of when a student, he used to cry sometime because of the love of his parents and mother and father, but he used to express the campaign, and very dedicatedly he used to pray to Allah Almighty, the Creator, so that my objective could be achieved. And these things in the old age, I just envy those sentiments. Saifullah Sahib says that this servant of Allah, in that period of trial, whatever he sought for from Allah Almighty gave all these things because of the blessing of Ahmadiyyat, and blessed him. And also the humanity, the human beings have benefited from his. And he says that during the period of Hadhrat, student Hadhrat Mauli Abdul Karim Sahib, Rajeki Sahib and Abdul Latif Sahib, and so many other scholars, I had the opportunity of requesting these people to pray. And he say very carefully, I can bear witness with full understanding that the dedication, the yearning in prayer, and from in that, so the reflection of all these great scholars was to be seen in Usman Cheeni Saheb. In his person, the reflection was quite visible. And in personal matters, I have witnessed his acceptance of prayer many times. He writes, and he used to advise me and my friends for prayer. He was very intelligent of the righteous people. He was very careful in his opinion. He used to respect the administration of the Jamaat, and also advise the same to all the friends around him. He was complete devotion with Khilafat, and also he was grateful for the beneficence and the benefits of Khilafat. Whenever somebody requested him, and he would say that, have you written to the Khalifa of the time? Islamabad, the Sadr Jamaat, Dr. Usman Sahib says that he was so much in love for the prayer that for the last few days, for the last few years, it's only a short distance, but he would stay and wait and take care of his breath. But I have never seen him combining the two prayers. And when the difference between the time was very short, so then I asked him that instead of going at home, so you just combine the prayers, Maghrib and Isha, in the mosque, or you just wait there. He said that by walking it's a good exercise, and I get the reward of covering the distance from my house to the mosque. Rashid Bashiruddin Sahib from Abu Dhabi, he writes that his prayers, and Ahmadis and non-Ahmadis, they used to get blessing of that when he was a missionary in Karachi, during his stay in Drigh Road. And Ahmadis and non-Ahmadis, they used to come and discuss their private matters and sought his prayer. And after the prayers, their great problems were over. So, in short, that in Drigh Road, the Chini Maulvi was spreading the love and affection and acceptance of prayer. And when he went to UK, then the non-Ahmadis, they used to mention about him for a very long time. Used to mention and remember him. And he says that he was very extremely obedient to his mother and in service. And he would sometime, the mother would use harsh word, but he would always run to her and help her and serve her. And he was unmindful of who is looking at that. The love and affection that he was showing to his mother, that was extraordinary. Majanoof Muhammad Sahib, Kyrgyzstan, he is a member of Kyrgyzstan Jamaat. He says that Osman Chou Sahib I met in 1994. I met him during a plane journey, and I did not realize that he's an Ahmadi and he's a scholar of Jamaat Ahmadiyya. But he was boarding the plane, he said Bismillah, then I realized he's a Muslim. Then I got introduced to him and we discussed on various matters. He asked me that, do you know about Jamaat Ahmadiyya Muslima? I said no, I don't know. After that he asked me that, do you read the translation, Chinese translation of the Holy Quran? He said yes, I do. And he said that how many translations in the Chinese language you know? All the translations which are available at that time, I have read them. And Usman Sahib asked that though the translators of the Chinese translator, you know all that? So then Usman Sahib said that among these translators is Usman Chou. The name of one translator, do you know him? He said, yes, I know him. But I have not read his translation, and nor I have met him. And then he asked that, how do you know Usman Chou? He said, I just know that he is a great scholar and he has translated the Holy Quran into Chinese, but I haven't seen him. At that time, at that moment, he said that I am that Usman Chou. So I was not believing that I am meeting him. And he gave me his contacts, and wherever he was temporarily staying, I gave him the address. And after a couple of days, he telephoned me. Cheeni Sahib told me that I want to see you at your home. So I could not imagine that such a great scholar would come to my house to meet me. So I received him at my home. There were two Pakistani friends. So for 10 minutes we conversed together. After that, Usman Chou Sahib invited me to a local restaurant. I said that you are a guest here, so I should have invited you. But he said that I am a student, but I should have there. And after that, we went to the hotel and got the food, had the food, and we discussed several matters. And he says that one day, when I went to see him, the building of the central bank was there, and we sat there and we discussed. and Usman Cheeni Saheb discussed the subject of death of Hadhrat Isa and Khatm Nubuwwat and Jinn and Yajuj and Majuj, and these topics and various questions were. So I gave him the reply which the normal Muslims give. Usman Cheeni Saheb said, and then he gave me the correct answers of all these questions. I was not finding suitable words to thank him, and I was greatly impressed by the answers which he gave. And similarly, and he also gave me the copy of the translation and some other books, and said that you read it and then write to me how did you find these books after reading them. And he said, I read those books, and it was my thinking was changed. I did not know about the bath. I came to know about that, and I did the bath. And he says that I always consider this a great honor that I have come to know the true community established by Hazrat Imam Mahdi al-Islam. Regarding the acceptance of prayer, many people have written. Ishad Sahib says that I was from Rabwa to Karachi. He was traveling, and on the way, and there was a function in Atfal. There were 60 children along with us, and we offered the prayer in congregation. So non-Ahmadis came to know that these are the Ahmadi people. On that, the mullahs, they started preaching in the compartments that take some action against us. We were very much worried. Usman Cheeni Saheb was along with it. Along with us, various people were appointed on security duty. Usmani Sahib said that you just simp on the berth and pray. That is your duty. And the mullahs, they had the plan that when the train arrives at Multan, that they will take an action. But the Multan came and passed by, and they saw they did not take an action. The mullah had to disembark at Multan, but he was asleep, and he got off the train at Lodra later on, and that's how we were saved from his harm and danger. Adnan Zafar Sahib, he says that in Home Office, my job was not being done in Home Office. My passport was there, and they say there is no record in UK. In our record, there is no trace of that. And I used to take leave from my job, and for several months I kept on going and coming. And one day I met Usman Cheeni Saheb in Islamabad. He was going home after offering the prayer. I told him the problem about the passport. He stood there and he prayed, and he was prayed with great crying. And I was so much worried, so much embarrassed that he is praying for me. And some other people also joined in the prayer. Next day, when my attorney telephoned the Home Office, there was no person attending. Then the director of the department, he picked up the phone, and he happened to pass by. He picked up the phone, and he told him that this is the problem. The director said that ask the person to come and see me in the morning. When I went to the office, Mr. Richard was his name. And when I went to the reception, that I have to meet Mr. Richard. So the reception people say that he's a big officer. What is the need? You just tell us. But nobody was willing to even inform the officer. One person went finally and told Mr. Richard, and Mr. Richard came out from his office himself and took him back to the office and traced all the records on the computer and asked the secretary that the passport should be issued. And then he came out to see me off outside. And all the staff was watching that who is this person that our great boss has come out and he's bidding him farewell. So what could I say to them? So my condition at that was I couldn't explain. This was the result of the prayers of Osman Sahib, that the job of 4 months was done in 1 year, but everything was done through the hand of the big officer. incidents are so many, as I mentioned, they cannot all be mentioned. And just I mention a few. Sayyid Hussain Ahmad Sahib, a missionary, he says, in the weekly meeting, we didn't have transport. The missionaries did not have. They used to go by buses, and when the meeting finished at night, then sometime with the help of the Amla member, we used to come. But Usman Cheeni Sahib, he never ever waited for that. He would start walking back. Either he would get a bus or some other transport was available. And the place where he was staying in mission house, the space was very limited. When we asked, where do you live? And he says that this is the room. Normally the ladies offer the prayer. Then when the ladies have to come, we pack up our things, and then this is the place where I sleep, where I eat. That was it. He was very modestly, he used to live in a very small place. Rashid Arshad Sahib, he has worked with him long time in Chinese desk. He works there. He says that 33 years I worked with him. And outstanding features are there. Regularly joining the congregational prayer, that was an example for us. Whether rain or storm or snow, he would go for the prayer to the mosque very regularly. And he said that we have seen in this condition that because of old age he was very weak. And he used to cover that distance with great difficulty, with heavy breathing. And tahajjud prayer he used to offer regularly. He was very regular in that. Once we went to one area in China after long travel, and the local Ahmadis, we discussed the matter for a long time, and I thought that it will be difficult for getting up for tahajjud, but in the morning I saw that he was offering the tahajjud prayer. Although briefly he did, but he did not leave a gap there. Cheeni Sahib himself says, and he has narrated that when he came to Rabwa, he saw that the elders of the Rabwa, they are offering the prayer with dedication, in crying and yearning, and Allah Almighty listens to his prayer. So this thing was great, which greatly impressed him. And he decided that I am going to follow in the footsteps of these great scholars. And Hadhrat Khalifatul Massih II, in the guidance was available to him. Hadhrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib, Hadhrat Mirza Sharif Ahmad Sahib. And he had the blessing of the Maulana Ghulam Rasul Rajaki Sahib, Mukhtar Ahmad Sahib Shah Jahanpuri, Muhammad Ibrahim Sahib Bakapuri, Sayyid Waliullah Shah Sahib. And he was having the blessing of their company. And Allah the Almighty, because of the company of these saintly people, his personality was further brightened up and increased, and link with Allah Almighty was established. He says that in Tabligh he was very active. He was very humble and very a person of short words. But we have seen that when the Tabligh started, then he was greatly excited, and he would talk for hours. And sometime if he's talking on telephone, so he would forget about the time, and maybe 1 hour or so he would continue talking. The hospitality was also inherited. He used to say, my father was great hospitable person, and it was only our house where people could come. In hospitality, his wife used to help and take a major role in hospitality. Similarly, he was caring for other people. However, how much he might be tired. There was a meeting late at night, and when somebody is, somebody said that please come to my house. Rashid Sahib says we thought he would deny, and then that person started preparing for the food. So for a long time we stayed there, and it was at 1 o'clock in the morning we reached home. But this was not possible that he would deny any offer, or he would say that do it quickly, I have to go early. Nasir Ahmad Badr Sahib, murabbi silsila, he writes, then when I was asked to learn in Chinese, then I contacted him, and I went to various places in China, and I was able to preach there. And at that time, all the advice and guidance of Cheeni Saheb was great help for me. He used to guide me through letters, and he says that thousands of Chinese, we were able to give the books and the leaflets, and we distributed this. They gave the message of the promised Messiah, and everywhere the mention of Usman Cheeni Saheb was in good words, who was believed to be a great scholar in China. And he says that the memorable literature that he has left behind, he would never allow him to die away. And the scores of books which he has written, it's like an ocean, which he picked up from the spiritual treasure of the promised Messiah, and he translated and conveyed that. And his very eloquent and very scholarly language, which was very attractive for people. And this I came to know when I went to one school in China. When I went there for the first time, they did not show any reaction in the Muslim area. But when I went there for the second time, then all the Chinese Muslims and the Imam, and they would meet me with great affection. And then I asked somebody that what is the reason that when I came for the first time, you did not show this, welcome. And the Chinese friend, and then a friend told me that the books which you left with these people, and especially the translation of the selected writings of the promised Messiah, when we read out this translation to the people, we are extremely, thrilled by that. And we haven't heard these things. So wish that you bring us more and more books like that. He says that in his village, I had the opportunity, native village, and all the people mentioned his name with great respect, and everybody mentioned the relationship with Chou Sahib, and and all the people, they looked after us very greatly. Hospitality was there, and only because of this thing that I know Cheeni Sahib, and I am representative of the community. He says that the English translation of the Holy Quran done by him, the Chinese translation, is very flowing translation and very easy to understand, in which the standard of the eloquence and the scholarly touch of the language is there. And there are other translations available, but the translation done by him, it carries a sort of authority in China. And I realized this point after meeting the scholars who, despite the difference with Ahmadiyyat, they appreciate this translation despite the doctrinal differences, and they like to read it. And during one visit, when a elderly imam, when he saw this translation in my hand, and there was a shine in his eyes, and he was very happily he was saying that I was in search of this translation. Can you give me a copy of that? I said that we have got only one, so please give us the address, and we will get another copy for you from Usman Cheeni Saheb. He said that please lend me the copy and for some time. And there were nearly 1,400 pages. They photocopied all that, and he did the photocopy. He was very happy at that, as if he has got a big treasure. Treasure it is, no doubt, but he could not express his joy at getting this. And his contacts with there are so many people, he had good contact with them. Other missionaries who have stayed there, they have also mentioned the same thing, that wherever we went in China, everywhere Cheeni Saheb was mentioned there. Zafrullah Sahib has also stayed there, who is a missionary in Pakistan these days. He said that in 2004, when Usman Sahib was there in Pakistan, then from Islamabad to Rawah, during the journey in the place of Color Khar, he showed me the place where he used to come and perform the retreat, the worship and retreat from Jamia. And he went to one house, and where there was no issue, no children, even after 10 years of marriage, and they requested for prayer. Usman Sahib prayed for them, and he saw that on the Indian style bed, Chaudhry Zafrullah Khan Sahib was asleep, and he told him that he gave the glad tidings to the family that you are going to get bliss. When he used to perform the retreat in Killer Car, during the Khalifatul Massih, I used to be a young person, so he was sitting in a very small room, and the Holy Quran was in his hand. He was praying, and all the people, young and old, they requested for prayer. And with a very smile on his face, he replied. He was very kind. Dr. Noori Sahib writes that when he made the checkup in 2004, about 14 years back. It was diagnosed that he has got a heart condition, and there is no treatment for that. I was very much worried, because there was no other way except prayer. But he says that such people, the chances of survival are very less, and they don't live on for just a couple of years. And Dr. Sahib writes that I am surprised. I have met him several times, despite his sickness. Because of the weakness, the signs of weakness were there, but he did not allow the disease and the sickness stand in his way and discharge of duty. He continued to work. And it is never happened that because of sickness he won't do his duty or make a gap in his worship. One day it was heavy snow, and I thought somebody said that it was not possible, and perhaps nobody would come for prayer, or at least we can go and open the mosque. And we thought that it will be difficult for Cheeni Sahib to come. When we opened the door, we saw that Cheeni Sahib was not only present there, but he came a long time ago, and he offered the Tahajjud prayer there. Ataul Mujib Rasha Sahib, the summary what he has written is, that's a very good summary, and the fact is there. He says he has left a big gap. He was a great scholar, and when I was thinking some of the qualities of him, and regarding his special qualities, he was very full of prayer, and prayers were accepted. He was very regular in prayers, and despite sickness and weakness, he was a very harmless person, and he was thinking welfare of all the people and give the good advice. Very simple-minded, very informal person, great hospitable, and he was insisting on hospitality. He was very courageous, and despite the sickness, he was active all the time, busy in prayer. And his responsibility, he used to perform his duties diligently, and he was completely dedicated to the work. Khilafat, he was a very dedicated servant of Khilafat. There was always a smile on his face. And there are so many other qualities, and this is the reality what he has mentioned. Allah Almighty exalt the status of Usman Cheeni Sahib and his wife and gave them the comfort and solace and looked after them, and also the children, enable them to inherit the good qualities and prayers and follow in his footsteps. After the prayer, I am going to lead his janazah prayer, inshallah.